Could Kenjaku have taken over Toji's body in order to gain the benefits of his heavenly restriction while also maintaining his own sorcery? Shout out to Chubby Ninja for the question today, and this is something we actually know the answer to because Gege has specifically addressed it. So let's talk about it. First of all, would it even be possible to cheat a heavenly restriction like this and still keep the benefits? And to that, I point you to the curious case of Mekamaru, who also had a heavenly restriction, but thanks to Mahito using idol transfiguration to fix his weakened body, he seemingly got to have his cake and eat it too. So with that being the case, why not do this, right? Why not have the perfect physical body to go along with your sorcery? And yes, he did eventually need cursed spirit manipulation, so he would have ultimately had to have swapped out of Toji into Geto, but still, why not use Toji while you could, or even swap out of Toji into Geto, get cursed spirit manipulation, and then swap back into Toji, right? Because we know that he still had access to Kaori's technique in Geto's body, so he presumably could have taken Geto's technique and moved it to another body as well. Well, like I said, Gege actually addressed this in the Jujutsu Kaisen fanbook, which I've got right here. He was asked, why didn't Kenjaku ever try to take over Gojo or Toji's body? And first he said Gojo would be impossible because he can't kill him. But Toji, on the other hand, his heavenly restriction makes things complicated. Kenjaku feared that if he did try to swap into Toji, there would be like a conflict between the heavenly restriction and his sorcery, and something might glitch out. So not that it would glitch out, but that it could. And you know what? As fate would have it, Gege would go on to give us a literal example of what he was talking about when he said glitch, because this is exactly what happened in Shibuya with Toji and the grandson. When the grandma tried to use her seance technique to summon Toji's body for her grandson to use, and only summoning the body so that it would just be like an empty vessel for him to pilot, it didn't work because of the strength of this heavenly restriction. It basically overpowered the sorcery of the seance, and Toji took completely over. So Kenjaku was fearful of something like that happening. Would he know that exactly that would happen? Probably not, which is why he just used the term glitch. He didn't know how that heavenly restricted body would interact with his sorcery, and he didn't want to take any chances. But could this have been possible, like theoretically? Maybe, right? I mean, after all, Kenjaku is probably far more formidable compared to that grandson. So maybe he would have been able to win the proverbial tug of war between body and mind, or body and sorcery, right? But then even if he did win, what would that look like? Would the body still retain its heavenly restricted properties and he'd still be able to perform sorcery like Mekamaru, kind of having his cake and eating it too? Who knows, right? So at the end of the day, it just wasn't worth the risk. But it is something that was theoretically on the table. Can a heavenly restricted user get stronger with training like a Jujutsu sorcerer can? This is an excellent question, so shout out to Angel and let's talk about it. Okay, so let's just take a look at this. And first of all, a Jujutsu sorcerer training and getting stronger just makes sense, right? As you learn and develop and deepen your understanding of cursed energy, you get stronger, you learn new abilities, you get a domain expansion, etc. But in the case of a heavenly restriction, it does seem a bit more binary in that you've either got it or you don't, right? And Maki is the perfect example, because for most of her life, her heavenly restriction wasn't fully activated. It was only after Mai died that she became truly awakened and equivalent to somebody like Toji. She just got a power boost that shot her up to fully realized, right? So can you then get stronger after being fully realized? I think the answer to this is yes, that they can get stronger with training. But first, I feel like we need to specify what exactly we mean by can they get stronger, because the heavenly restriction itself, I think, is a constant. I don't think the benefit they're getting from that is something you can train and increase even more. So maybe a good analogy to a sorcerer would be like, yeah, you can train in sorcery, develop more, maybe get the domain expansion, but you're never going to change your curse technique, right? Like you were just born with that, and that's always going to be steady. Similarly, a heavenly restricted user isn't going to increase the bonus they get from their heavenly restriction, but they themselves can train individually to utilize that better. Exhibit A for this is Maki, because even after her heavenly restriction is fully realized, she does not truly awaken until after training, until after hundreds of matches with the sumo guy, right? Where she really understands how to use this new body that she's gotten. So that is literally her growing from training right there. But I know that won't satisfy everyone because they'll chalk it up to Maki's unique situation. So let's look at Toji for Exhibit B. And in his fight with Gojo, he even mentions how he's rusty, like he should have run away instead of taking that fight. And for him to be rusty implies that he could be better, right? with training. Now, you might say, well, yeah, you could train like your martial arts skills, or you could get your body in even better shape. And those are the things I'm talking about. So I do think it's possible for them to increase their overall skill level, their overall strength, or whatever we want to call it, by these different means to better utilize the gifts they have. And I think that's the exact same as what a sorcerer does.